On Inside Serie A this week, we look back at the best moments from the long and winding road of last season in Serie A. A star on the pitch, but a newcomer in the dugout. Andrea Pirlo promises to bring pizzazz to Juventus. Filippo Inzaghi is back in the top flight, leading record-breaking Benevento on their return to Serie A. And the man with entertainment in his DNA, we meet Napoli owner and film tycoon Aurelio De Laurentiis.
August last year was a time of excitement and expectation. The new Serie A campaign seemed set to be the most competitive season in recent history. Juventus had dominated the league for 8 years. And in the effort to strip them of the crown, many top clubs had appointed a new coach, hoping to find a Scudetto-winning formula. But the bianconeri weren't resting on their laurels. He may have won 5 consecutive titles, but Massimiliano Allegri was replaced by a coach who had yet to win a single major trophy in Italian football, Maurizio Sarri.
I only know one way of getting rid of doubts about me, and that's winning.
Roma had lured Paulo Fonseca away from Shakhtar Donetsk. After an excellent season with Sampdoria, Marco Giampaolo was handed the reins at Milan. But the real buzz was happening in the other half of the city. At Inter, Antonio Conte had just put pen to paper. A proven winner, backed by a host of new signings, there was a feeling in the air that finally the Nerazzurri could challenge for the title.
I'm not one who recognizes any limits, and I won't accept anyone who does at the start of this season. We know we have to work a lot. We have to work better than the others to bridge the gap.
Juve got off to a flying start. An unbeaten run of 14 games, including a dominant display and important victory over their bitter rivals Inter. Despite that defeat, Conte's men were enjoying an even stronger run, with 12 wins in their first 14 matches of the campaign. Close behind was Simone Inzaghi's Lazio, led by on-fire Ciro Immobile. He was already staking a claim to be top scorer of the season. Capital rivals Roma were also playing attractive football with their mix of youth and experience. When Serie A took their usual break at the end of the year, these 4 teams held the top 4 spots. The New Year spell belonged to Lazio, sublime form, 8 wins and 2 draws. By then, the battle for supremacy had evolved into a 3-horse race. At the end of matchday 26, the reigning champions only had a 1-point lead over Lazio, with Inter 6 points off the pace. Then, the global threat became a national nightmare. Italy became the epicenter of the coronavirus pandemic in late February. The country went into lockdown. The last match played was Sassuolo Brescia on March the 9th, when Ciccio Caputo gave the country a message of hope. Everything will be okay.
May the 18th, 2020, a special day and a strange day. After an almost 3-month lockdown, teams gathered again at their training grounds to prepare for the restart. Serie A's conclusion would follow a protocol constructed under Dr. Gianni Nanni's careful guidance.
Dal punto di vista fisico, diciamo che
In terms of fitness, we can certainly say at home and in a private garden, you cannot have the workouts with an intensity and a volume of work that you can do on the pitch. This is obvious. However, it was this athletic work that kept the car ticking over at a sufficient speed to be able to resume.
Ciccio Caputo, Sassuolo's ever-eager top scorer, couldn't wait for the season's new beginning. But when on-site training sessions restarted, he found that everything was very different.
During the first 10 days, when we could only train individually, we took our showers at home and everyone washed their own kits. It wasn't easy. It was something completely new for us. But we adapted to the situation because we knew we'd had to restart and send out a positive message.
It wasn't only a matter of preparation. The fixtures would come thick and fast. That, together with the summer heat, brought added risks. Dr. Nanni was well aware of the potential problems.
Of course, playing 3 games a week means greatly increasing the probability of suffering injuries, especially from the point of view of muscle injuries.
It will be hard because we'll be playing every 3 days. Obviously, there will be problems, whether it's physically or from a recovery point of view. But try to get through this tour de force in the best possible way.
In an effort to alleviate the risks, the IFAB approved a new rule, allowing 5 substitutions per match.
il fatto di poter...
The fact that 5 substitutions will be available will help our efforts somewhat in the prevention of injuries.
The 5 substitutions will give many of us the chance to recover.
Last but not least, the empty stadiums. The players, so often inspired and roused to extra efforts by their fans, had to accept the inevitable.
Playing behind closed doors will be a handicap for everyone. It ruins the stadium's atmosphere. When you have a scoring chance, or when you miss a sitter, or when you dribble past someone, you feel the fans around you.
Dr. Nanni understood the sacrifice, but it allowed for a greater good.
The whistle for kickoff will be very exciting, but just as exciting will be the final whistle, because if the season ends by completing all the matches, it means that all the components have worked well.
Everyone did an outstanding job. On June the 20th, Serie A was ready to kick off once again.
A hiatus that lasted 103 days, an unprecedented event. The season resumed with 2 match days per week, but the fans were absent. The remainder of the campaign was played in empty stadiums, a necessary sacrifice to complete the fixtures. Before Serie A was suspended, Juve fans watched Cristiano Ronaldo score in 11 consecutive matches, equaling the Serie A record. Lazio had enjoyed an unbeaten streak of 21 games and were looking like genuine title contenders. 13 coaches had been sacked. Claudio Ranieri, Stefano Pioli and Rino Gattuso, among the new appointees, turned around the fortunes of Sampdoria, Milan and Napoli, respectively. Arguably playing the best football in the league, Atalanta had already scored 5 or more goals on 5 different occasions.
What a strike! Atalanta lead!
After the restart, Giampiero Gasperini's side took Serie A by storm. Their city, Bergamo, had been hardest hit by the pandemic, and the Nerazzurri put their pain and passion into their play. Losing just once in 13 matches, scoring a total of 98 goals and attaining their highest finish in Serie A. A well-deserved third place with Champions League qualification guaranteed.
My goodness, that's what a strike!
Lazio were beaten by Atalanta on their first match back and looked like a shadow of the side that had been so explosive in the new year. 6 defeats after the restart saw them finish in 4th place, though Ciro Immobile did succeed in equaling Gonzalo Higuain's record of 36 goals in a single season. Brescia, Spal and Lecce, the 3 bottom sides before the break, failed to move up through the gears in June and July and were all relegated to Serie B, with Spal finishing rock bottom. Despite having the best defence in the top flight, the fewest defeats and the same amount of points as in their championship winning season of 2009-2010, Inter's too frequent failure to hold on to winning positions prevented them from maintaining their title challenge when the league resumed. Antonio Conte and his new team had to settle for 2nd place. The end result, after one of the most difficult campaigns in history, was the same as the previous 8 years. Juventus were crowned champions of Italy for the 9th season in a row, a record that no other team in the top 5 European leagues can match. By matchday 33, the Bianconeri had an 8-point gap over their nearest rivals, and they celebrated another Scudetto victory with 2 games to spare after defeating Sampdoria. Despite the Scudetto, however, it was not all moonlight and roses for the grand old lady of Italian football.
He may have won the Scudetto, but Maurizio Sarri didn't hold on to the job. When the Bianconeri were eliminated from the Champions League before the final 8 in Lisbon, Andrea Agnelli sacked the 61-year-old after just a year at the helm. Andrea Pirlo, one of the greatest playmakers of all time, had been appointed as coach of the under-23s at the end of June, only to be swiftly promoted to take charge of the first team.
I didn't even have the time to think about moving up from the under-23s to the first squad. It happened all so quickly after I was asked if I believed I could coach the first team, and I dived in head first and forgot about everything else. So I didn't have the time to make any other choice or decision. I just thought I was in the right place at the right time, and that's it.
The majestic midfielder had led the Juve resurgence with his vision and ability on the ball under Antonio Conte.
Here he goes, he's shot beautifully!
Emulating that team spirit will be a key factor for a man who has only just set off on his new career as a coach.
We created a great team with great belief and values, and this is what I would like to bring to Juventus now. This DNA based on work, sacrifice, and the desire to work for one another, because that's the only way to reach certain goals. I want to bring back some enthusiasm, which is what the team was lacking in the last period.
What a goal from Pirlo! That is the winner! The last second!
I said this briefly to the team yesterday. I want to say 2 things to you. First is that we always need to have the ball. Second is that when we lose it, we need to get it back as quickly as possible. So these were the first 2 tactical things I said to them, and they are the things I believe in.
It is another new start for Juventus, but the goal is always the same: to keep winning. Scudetto number 10 is their unqualified target.
Later in the show, Filippo Inzaghi considers the upcoming campaign for his Serie B winning side, Benevento.
I've always had a great passion for drawing. So I started drawing as a child, and I copied whatever I saw and whatever caught my attention. I think that drawing was maybe a way to make what went through my head more real. The passion was ignited when I was 9. It was 1972 when my father took me to my first match, Sampdoria-Inter. The only thing was that my father took me to the wrong stand, and we were in with the Sampdoria fans. When Inter scored, I was the only child celebrating amongst the mass of Sampdoria supporters. I knew then that apart from my passion for drawing, I also had a passion for football and the nerazzurri colours, because the emotion was so incredible.
In days past, you'd see drawings, not photographs of Serie A goals in newspapers and magazines. The artistic style was developed in the 30s, and Franco Bochicchio was one of the most prolific illustrators during Italian football's golden era.
The first drawing was published in 1979 in Guerin Sportivo, and it is particularly close to my heart because it was the year the Nerazzurri won the title, and I'd reproduced a very nice Beccalossi goal when Passinato broke down the right. I drew it and sent it to Guerin Sportivo. It was a great thrill to see it published a few weeks later.
Franco's passion turned into a little business. He started working for the Turin newspaper Tutto Sport and for several club fanzines. As he couldn't record the TV coverage, he memorised the goals broadcast on the few football shows. Then, every Sunday, a magical process of illustration and collaboration began.
The Tuesday paper went to print with the drawings, but the editor wanted them on Monday morning. I'd drawn them on Sunday evening in Savona. There was no fax, there were no mobile phones, there was nothing. The only method at that time was to put the drawings I did in Savona in an envelope, take the envelope to the station early in the morning and give them to the conductor. He gave them to another conductor at Carmagnola station, who handed them over to the railway police at Turin station, who then gave them to the Tutto Sport messenger by mid-morning. That was a chain of goodwill and solidarity from another era that maybe no longer exists. For 9 years, that envelope of drawings arrived promptly at 10:30 in the morning on the desk of the editor Pietro Dardanello. It was incredible. The drawings I made had to be dynamic and fluid, not perfect. The more perfect the human figure is, the more static it becomes. Therefore, the player's limbs must almost be out of shape. The movement of the ball must be highlighted by sharply drawn or rounded strokes. If it's raining, there needs to be puddles on the ground. The net needs to bulge. Rather than a player looking surprised, all it takes are a few little strokes around his head to get across the idea that the player is surprised. Perhaps the most beautiful goal I have ever seen and that I have drawn with great pleasure is Del Piero's goal in Juventus-Fiorentina, the 3-2 game. It was the Juventus winner near the end, a wonderful strike. As they say today, a no-look with the right foot, which gave Juve victory and for me an incredible emotion.
With the end of the century and the start of a new digital era, football illustrators became redundant. But Franco still draws goals, both for fun and for friends.
Even modern goals have their charm, despite how much football has changed from the 70s, 80s and 90s. But there are such dynamic goals scored nowadays that I would really like to draw them right away even now and see them published. Nowadays there's Lukaku's runs, which are pure power. There was the class of Totti, who scored an amazing goal at Sampdoria a few seasons back. And then Ronaldo scored a wonderful goal a few months ago against Sampdoria. He leapt 2.56 metres in the air and stayed elevated for more than a second and a half. Amazing.
Ce ne sono.
There are some beautiful goals scored in the modern game.
The 2019-2020 season, for all its difficulties, brought success for Sassuolo. An 8th place finish, the 6th best attack, and 3 players, Francesco Caputo, Domenico Berardi and Jeremy Boga, scored more than 10 goals apiece. It's been a great start to the club's centenary year.
100 years of Sassuolo is a great anniversary. Many consider it to be a small, young club, but actually it has a lot of history. It's been able to build an important history throughout the years with coaches that have done very well, like Allegri, Pioli, or Di Francesco. We've been very happy with the work conducted over the last few years because we have allowed players to reach some top clubs. For example, Lorenzo Pellegrini, who now plays for Roma. Or Stefano Sensi or Politano. It's important for Sassuolo as a club to discover talented players who can do well and then move on to higher levels.
Giovanni Carnevali took over as CEO last year after the death of Giorgio Squinzi, who, with his wife Adriana Spazzoli, owned both the club and the construction giant Mapei, the Neroverdi's long-term shirt sponsor.
The model Sassuolo is built on came about many years ago thanks to the owner, Mr. Squinzi, who knew exactly what he wanted when he set out the project. It had to be a football club that represented one of his many other companies. Sassuolo is important not just for the results on the pitch, but for our policy regarding young players, the younger generation, the stadium which is owned by the club. Last year we built our own training centre. It's all part of the growth of the club, a long-term project, and that's what makes it a club to look up to.
This will be Sassuolo's 8th consecutive Serie A season, an incredible achievement for a club that only 20 years ago had never progressed beyond Italy's 3rd tier and could only dream of European qualification. Sassuolo are proof that dreams can come true.
I was lucky to work for the Mapei Group and for Mr. Squinzi for many years, so I was lucky enough to get to know him very well. Many years ago, he said to his partners, "One day we'll go to San Siro and beat Inter," and that came true.
Steps up.
I remember one of the first matches against Milan, and Berardi scored 4 goals. And he went into the changing room and said to Domenico, "Did you have to score 4 goals today?" He was smiling because Milan was always his favourite team. But that was overtaken by his love for Sassuolo.
The club have long had a reputation for developing talented young guns and have enhanced that record in recent years. They offer the perfect testing ground for players who are failing to meet their potential at bigger clubs.
Locatelli is the most expensive player in the history of Sassuolo, and probably Milan didn't give him enough time to mature properly. We are far more patient, and thanks to the work of our coaches, in this case De Zerbi, he has matured. Now Locatelli is ready for a big club again, and we've had a lot of offers from some important clubs. But there are also players that are older. A player like Caputo, who we thought was extremely talented, because Caputo has all the traits of a great striker. Boga is a real talent. We were able to see someone like Boga play for Chelsea, but not everyone gets to play in a big club like that. Boga has improved, but he still needs to improve a lot because he has so much potential. We have lots of young promising players. We have Raspadori, who is just 20 and has come up through the youth system. We have lots of young players, lots of Primavera players that have joined the first team already, and some of these are very exciting players.
There are a variety of possible ways to mark a 100th anniversary, but Sassuolo have always emphasised long-term satisfaction over fleeting pleasures.
It depends which way you look at the centenary. Over just one season, then it's a brief time period. But over many seasons, Sassuolo has to aim to become a club on a European level.
After 2 years' absence, Benevento are back in the top flight. They showed courage and consistency, smashing records as they stormed through Serie B. 86 points, 26 wins, and the Strega, the Witch, ended up with a stunning 18-point lead overall, the biggest winning margin in the division. The brain behind this stunning campaign was coach Filippo Inzaghi.
The secret of this team was our perseverance in each game. In every training session, the boys always put in their very best effort. Winning is one thing, breaking records is another. Winning in style is what they managed to do. We can boast the best defence in Europe, combined with the best attack in the league. And it's clear I had a bit of fun with our tactical setup. I could play with 2 forwards, or employ a 4-3-3 approach. And even with 3 at the back, it wouldn't have made much of a difference. We had top-notch quality.
After coaching Milan, Venezia and Bologna with mixed results, Inzaghi found his perfect partner when he took charge of his first club from southern Italy.
I
had never worked in the south before. I was curious. The affection I used to receive there was immense, and that made me happy. I knew Pasquale Foggia from my playing days. I know how highly our sporting director thinks of me. And then when I met the president, Vigorito, we immediately clicked. I have to admit that we bonded from day one. Then obviously, when you enjoy such a positive season, winning 25 games, everything becomes amazing. Now we've got Serie A to look forward to. Everything will be harder. But with this foundation, I think we can do well.
Inzaghi's own background is impressive. The 2006 World Cup champion scored 156 goals in Serie A with Parma, Atalanta, Juventus and Milan. After 3 league titles, 2 Champions Leagues and a Club World Cup, he followed younger brother and Lazio coach Simone into management.
When I was playing, I never imagined I'd become a coach one day, because when you experience the emotions that I did, you never think it'll end. And so you never really consider what will come after. My brother was an excellent example for me. When he was coaching the youth teams at Lazio, I could see he was really happy and enthusiastic. Adriano Galliani gave me the chance to start with the youth teams at Milan, and I soon realised I really enjoyed it. It's a highly rewarding job, surely a lot more complicated than when I was a player, but just as exciting. Now I'm very glad I made that choice.
The coming season will be full of evocative and emotional reunions for Super Pippo. He'll lead Benevento against Napoli, coached by his former teammate Gennaro Gattuso, Lazio and his brother Simone, and of course his beloved Milan.
I'm already looking forward to some personal challenges. I'll be back at San Siro against Milan. That will be emotional. Meeting my brother is always a pleasure. I think Simone is one of the best coaches in Europe. He's an example for me. What he's achieved at Lazio is exceptional. It'll be great to see him on match day. There's also Rino to catch up with as well. These will be very intense emotions for me.
and Pippo Inzaghi puts the ball into the back of the net.
Benevento's triumph last term was remarkable, but will one of the best Serie B teams ever be able to hit their targets in Serie A?
I'm not sure which will be more difficult, Juventus winning their 10th Scudetto or us beating the drop. I just want to focus on my team, and now we have to rise to the challenge. This extraordinary moment will come to a close and we'll come back from our holidays full of all our records and our wonderful achievements. After that, we'll focus on keeping the good work going, which is what the city, the club president and directors here deserve.
Crotone also earned automatic promotion after 2 years away from Serie A. Based in the city in Calabria, the southeast region of the Italian peninsula, the team have two nicknames: the Sharks, after the club mascot, and the Pitagorici, because the Greek philosopher Pythagoras of Samos founded his famous school here. Giovanni Stroppa, an illustrious playmaker in the 90s, is in the dugout, while the team's star man is 28-year-old Nigerian Simi, top scorer in Serie B last season with 20 goals. He contributed 7 in Crotone's 2 campaigns in the top flight. Spezia are the third promoted side. They beat Chievo in the playoff semi-final and Frosinone in the final. La Spezia, a city in Liguria, was once a favourite haunt of Lord Byron and other English romantic poets. It's famous for its harbour and as a base to explore the glorious villages of the Cinque Terre. Spezia are Serie A debutants, and as they join Genoa and Sampdoria, the region will have 3 teams in the top flight for the first time. Vincenzo Italiano, former playmaker of Verona and Chievo among others, is their coach, while top scorer Emmanuel Ghiazzi, who was crucial in the league and in the playoff phase, is certainly a player to watch.
Later in the show, Italian football's great showman Aurelio De Laurentiis sets out his vision for the world of calcio.
The words Italian and style just seem to go together, and Serie A has lived up to the national trend for sartorial elegance. As the players showed their class in the final weeks of the prolonged 2019-2020 season, clubs were planning their look for the upcoming campaign. Some took a retrospective approach, Roma modelling a colourful lollipop number from the late 70s. While for Udinese, the theme is the Zico era of the following decade. Other teams took their city's unique traditions as inspiration, finding creativity in local culture, from Florence to Cagliari and Milan, a sense of belonging and continuing connection. Napoli went urban street style. Champions Juventus opted for artistry with the iconic stripes in flowing brushstrokes. The feel for flair and fashion is one precious part of Italian football's unique appeal. And according to some collectors, creativity opens up endless opportunities.
Dello stesso anno non ho un solo modello perché
I own multiple kit designs from the same season because I have the version with the Champions League sleeve patch, the Serie A one, other tournament patches, Chinese sponsor variants, and so on. So from the same year, I happen to have 10 shirts of the same model. For many, the home shirt is just one design, but I look out for all the differences even within the same shirt. As an historian and collector, I can accept that the second or third shirts are pink, green, polka dot, or whatever the big companies want, but the first shirt should remain as standard. Right now, we tend to take a bit of a risk with the first shirt, and for me, it's forced and a bit too much.
Inter fan Federico Enrichetti is one of Italy's biggest football shirt collectors. He owns more than 8,000 items, ranging back over a century.
Il mio scopo è cercare di arrivare ai...
My aim is to try to find the oldest pieces possible. I still collect a lot of the modern shirts, but in particular only Inter, because it is now a commercial situation. There is no real difficulty in finding recent kits. It's just a question of price and who spends the most. While you're never really sure, you'll be able to find the older shirts, no matter how much you spend.
Un pezzo vecchio.
My preferred channel is to find shirts that already have a story and their own pedigree, and that belong to former footballers. More than 300 ex-players have actually given me a shirt. For a modern footballer, or in any case from the 80s or the 90s, you can find 300 or 400 shirts, while for a footballer from the 60s or 50s, finding 10 is already a lot.
Federico, who knows many players personally, is close friends with Javier Zanetti. He designed some of the former Nerazzurri captain's armbands and turned the shirt for his farewell match into an individual work of art.
I totally personalized Zanetti's Inter shirt against Lazio with embroidery. The buttons are cufflinks from a jeweler. There are only 2 of the kind, and we have 1 each, a token of our friendship.
Grazie, siete fantastici, meravigliosi, vi amo veramente. Grazie per avermi adottato, grazie mille.
I like a lot of the Inter shirts. I can't pick one. Maybe, amongst the modern ones, I would go for the 1997-98 shirt. That was when Ronaldo arrived, so to speak, and it was the most beautiful. Going back, the white with the diagonal bands have their charm. Or the classic with the collar and the cuffs, and the big black and blue stripes have a very particular appeal.
Tra le maglie, una delle più curiose, ho un Inter subito del dopoguerra.
One of the most curious shirts I have for Inter is immediately post-war. It's white with the number 9. The great peculiarity is that the 9 is the other way around. The reason was that the seamstresses after the war were illiterate, so they sewed the 9 the wrong way around, making this very rare shirt a truly unique piece.
In più per il fatto di avere il 9 al contrario.
It's not just Inter. Serie A as a whole is represented in the Federico collection. Grande Torino, Gigi Rivas Cagliari, Gianni Rivera, Diego Maradona. A real treasure trove. Widening the collection meant turning a hobby into a business. Federico is now an official supplier of Casa Milan, San Siro Museum, and many others.
Going to the home of collectors or club executives or players, when you find a good piece, you cannot say no. I was born a shirt collector, but over the years I have expanded into pennants, trophies, medals, boots, balls, captain's armbands, everything related to the world of football. The best moment is when you go to the home of a former player who opens the trunk and the kit bag and the wardrobe, and there can be everything or nothing. You go there, you open it, and there's always an oh. And at that moment, the most unexpected and most beautiful things are found. The most sensational and unexpected thing will be the next one I find.
It's been 16 entertaining years since the Italian film tycoon Aurelio De Laurentiis took over at Napoli. He rescued the Azzurri from bankruptcy and launched the team on their relentless climb back from third division obscurity.
I remember how tough the first 2 years were, because I went from hanging out with Angelina Jolie and Gwyneth Paltrow to dodging overzealous fans in the south of Italy. Sometimes we had to stay locked in the dressing room for 4 or 5 hours. It was incredible, but I embraced it, and I said to myself, this is a marvelous movie. I'm writing my own script that no one could ever have written for me.
An act of self-creation. The football novice turned into an exemplary club owner. Napoli have won trophies and become a model of financial stability.
It has been a roller coaster ride from the first year in Serie A ride where we've been able to build. We've managed to constantly increase turnover. Although there have been a few years where we've gone into the red, in most cases we've always balanced the books. And in the last year we were in the black by 150 million. Just lately we have invested 70 million euros plus bonuses, which could become 80 million for Victor Osimhen. Napoli are one of the few clubs in Europe with their balance sheet in order.
De Laurentiis is an entertainer, a creator with a unique perspective on the beautiful game. Calcio, he thinks, could become even bigger.
Come on, everyone. Let us create a system that needs to be put in place to run football. We have the ability to change. We must be able to modernize this world of football. Just look at America and the NBA. What are the clubs worth? How are they managed?
Letting fly and finding the back of the net.
When I say that we should have a maximum of 12 teams in Serie A, it is above all for the level of competitiveness of the teams and their ability to invest. But also because we would play less, which would attract a fan base that would become more intrigued and involved in what is on show.
Più intrigante e più partecipativa.
American film producer Dan Friedkin acquired Roma in August. De Laurentiis, who well understands the allure of the Italian game, has some tips for his fellow tycoon.
Italian football has created a great deal of interest around it because there is a wide margin for growth there. We have oil under our feet. There's gold in the ground, but perhaps we haven't noticed that yet. Mr. Friedkin is very welcome in Italy. He and his son Ryan will have to get heavily involved, because anyone who believes that they're only an investor, it's like in the world of cinema. A film is like a child that you have to nurture.
You have to teach it to walk, to talk, to express itself, to become an adult.
Ad esprimersi, a diventare uomo.
That's a wonderful finish. Nicolo Zaniolo continuing this rampant run of form.
Nel calcio.
In football, it's the same thing. You cannot be an owner of a football club by being absent.
Rimanendo assente.
A flair for finding the perfect person for the part, in Napoli's leading man Rino Gattuso, De Laurentiis saw charisma and coaching excellence.
La prima volta
The first time I called Gattuso, it was to ask him to play a part in a film.
di interpretare un film mi era venuto in mente di
I
fare
thought of making a detective story starring Gattuso and Francesco Totti.
allora
Gattuso was a bit taken back and said, "But I've never acted before."
così colpito dice ma io che c'entro non ho mai
I told him, "Don't worry, you have a strong presence. You're very tough. You'll definitely shine on the screen.
lo schermo sicuramente in un corpo
In a police team, you could be a very great driving force. Maybe we can have Totti play the part of a gang leader that you have to take down. It would become a very entertaining contrast. Trust me, it could be an experience." Then in the end, nothing came of it.
Gattuso ha fatto un grande
Gattuso has done a great reconstruction job. In a prohibited and penalising environment, that is COVID.
del Covid
On top of that, he took over when the season was already underway.
iniziato
In Serie, he has the ability to do something so special.
questo è stato un anno
It was a year of getting to know things. But anyway, he won us the Italian Cup.
è un grande allenatore
In my opinion, he's a great coach, a great thinker and a great connoisseur of football.
un grande conoscitore
17 is an unlucky number in Neapolitan tradition, but entering his 17th season at the helm of the club, the boss reckons it's time for Napoli to break the spell and restore their glory.
ma io credo che
I feel that all fans dream of winning a league. As Napoli's #1 fan, I cannot but dream of winning it.
tutti lo sognano.
We're all dreaming of it, but we have 20 clubs, so it's a bit more complicated.
2 anni fa ci siamo andati
We got close 2 years ago. I'm not ruling out we can get closer, especially if someone slips up.
Now in Serie, and it's there to be tapped in by Zielinski.
la
Competition is something we have or don't have in our DNA. I never give in, I never give up.
In Serie, who makes Napoli dream again?
Next time, we talk to one of the game's undisputed superstars, the king of charisma, Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Join us then. But for now, ciao ciao.